In an astonishing incident that has captured global attention, Qatar Airways inadvertently operated a unique ghost flight between Melbourne and Adelaide. The flight QR915 took off on schedule but carried no passengers due to a booking system glitch. This unprecedented occurrence highlights the intricacies of modern air travel and the potential challenges posed by advanced technology. The incident has sparked discussions on airline operations and the reliance on digital systems. The chief of Melbourne Airport has supported calls for an open skies agreement that would make it easier for international airlines to fly to Australia amid ongoing tensions sparked by the government's decision to reject more Qatar Airways flights. More international competition would improve outcomes for passengers and create a lower fare environment as well as enhanced service and improve reliability, said LORIE Argus, chief executive of Melbourne Airport. An open skies approach would allow airlines to freely fly international routes and compete openly with each other for passengers, breaking down regulatory barriers and eliminating government involvement in airline decision-making. This tone of collaboration is in sharp contrast with comments made last week by the Australian Transport Minister, who categorically rejected Qatar's plans to expand its flights into the country. The Qatari airline is limited to operating 28 weekly services to Australia's major airports. This allows once-a-day flights to the 4 major airports in Australia: Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and Perth. Despite widespread support in the tourism industry, plans to increase this coverage by 21 additional flights were rejected by the Australian government, citing competing national interest for its local carrier, Qantas. However, under the existing bilateral agreement, there's no limit placed on how many services Qatar is able to run to non-major airports. In November 2022, Qatar Airways introduced a second daily non-stop flight between Doha and Melbourne, but with Adelaide registered as its destination and departure port in Australia. By flying the 354-seater Boeing 777-300ERs between Melbourne and Adelaide, it means the airline does not exceed the 28 weekly services into major airports. It's allowed to operate under the existing bilateral agreement. However, the airline is not permitted to sell tickets on the leg between Melbourne and Adelaide to domestic passengers under Australia's aviation laws. It can only carry the few passengers booked through to Doha who have chosen the two-legged route instead of the separate daily non-stop flight between Adelaide and Doha that Qatar Airways also operates. Qatar's QR988 arrives from Doha into Melbourne at 11:30 p.m. each night, and almost all passengers disembark. However, any passengers booked to stay on the plane for the Adelaide leg must endure a 6-hour layover in Tullamarine Airport's International Terminal before the flight departs at 5:35 a.m. because of Adelaide Airport's 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew. The QR989, which flies the outbound direction to Doha, departs Adelaide at 11:40 a.m. each day, lands in Melbourne 1 hour 30 minutes later, and travelers often shorter 1 hour 45-minute layover in the international terminal before the majority of passengers board for the non-stop flight to Doha. Passenger numbers on the 354-seat aircraft average in the single digits on the inbound QR988 leg from Melbourne to Adelaide, with the overnight layover, according to Guardian analysis of government flight data and confirmed by sources with knowledge of the flights. This flight sometimes carries no passengers at all. The patronage is so low on both Melbourne to Adelaide legs on these trips they are considered ghost flights, the term for usually loss-making service operated with 0 passengers or fewer than 10% capacity in order to meet an obligation. The separate non-stop flight between Doha and Adelaide that Qatar Airways flies as part of its Auckland-Doha service is a significantly more popular option with Adelaide travelers, the government data shows. Qatar Airways previously ran a second daily service between Doha and Sydney by extending the final port to Canberra, exploiting the same legal option. While flights with a secondary port can encourage global airlines to better serve smaller cities in Australia, the scheduling of QR988 and QR989 have led to a view within the aviation sector that they are primarily functioning as second daily Melbourne services, multiple reports say. If you found today's video informative, please show your support by giving us a thumbs up, subscribing to our channel, and turning on notifications for future updates. We would love to hear your thoughts on the recent Qatar Airways flying near empty planes in Australia to exploit legal loophole. Let us know your opinion and any questions you may have in the comment section below. Your engagement is valuable to us.